There are mornings that feel ordinary until they do not. April 18, 2016, began in that way for many people across a quiet patch of North Texas. The air was thick with storm warnings. Heavy clouds moved across the sky. Most residents were asleep when the day's events began to unfold. A series of small, ordinary movements that would, within hours, produce a scene the region would never forget. At the center of those hours was Terri Missy Bevers, a fitness instructor, mother, friend, someone who had carved out a life built around family, community, and early morning workouts. What happened at Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian in the hours before sunrise would draw intense public attention, persistent investigation, and more than 1,000 tips. Officials have said the case remains open, and the community has refused to let the story fade. Terri Leanne Missy Bevers was 45 years old. She lived in Red Oak, Texas, with her husband and 3 daughters. She worked as a fitness instructor, part of the Camp Gladiator community, and she taught early morning boot camp style classes that drew people who preferred to exercise before the workday began. Friends and colleagues described Missy as energetic, loving, and dedicated to community causes. She used social media to promote workouts, and in the days before her death, she posted that, despite storm warnings, her class would go on. That decision, to hold an early morning session despite rough weather, is a detail that would become important in the timeline of what happened. According to police reports and contemporaneous news coverage, the rough chronology is straightforward in broad strokes. Missy arrived at Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian at about 4:18 a.m. to set up for her 5 a.m. fitness class. Surveillance cameras inside the church captured footage of an unidentified person walking through hallways before Missy arrived, dressed in what appears to be tactical or SWAT-style gear, and carrying a tool later described by police as a hammer. The recorded figure was seen opening doors and breaking glass. Sometime after Missy entered the building, and before 5 a.m., the same footage shows the unidentified person moving through interior hallways again. And, according to police, the person and Missy were not seen again on the available video. Shortly after 5 a.m., a boot camp student entered the church and found Missy unresponsive. Emergency services were called. These are the broad reported events that define the early hours that morning, a sequence that moved quickly from routine to tragedy. When first responders arrived, they found Missy unresponsive inside the church. Police reported that she had been killed by multiple puncture wounds to her head and chest. Items associated with the crime, a hammer and other tools, were later reported near the scene in search warrant affidavits released by investigators. Officers emphasized early that nothing appeared to have been taken from the building. That detail shifted the early line of inquiry from simple robbery to a possible premeditated attack. Midlothian police later described the person seen in the surveillance video as wearing a helmet, a balaclava, gloves, and a vest bearing the word police, a disguise that, if accurate, was intended to mislead anyone who encountered the figure. Investigators and local reporting repeatedly highlighted a curious physical detail captured on video. The suspect walked with an unusual gait, feet turned slightly outward, and, based on analysts' observations, with the right foot appearing to turn out more than the left. Detectives suggested that the gait might reveal something about a prior injury or a temporary impairment, a potential biometric clue that could narrow the pool of persons of interest. That gait, combined with the tactical clothing and the hammer swinging in the footage, became one of the seminal talking points in the investigation and in later public analyses by journalists and independent investigators. Police executed multiple search warrants and collected a range of physical and digital evidence. The church's surveillance video was seized and analyzed. Devices belonging to Missy, including phones and tablets, were collected and forensically examined. Investigators also searched for vehicles, evaluated nearby camera footage from commercial and private sources, and interviewed dozens of people who might have relevant information. Search warrant affidavits released later in public records referenced messages found on Missy's devices and on the devices of others connected to the investigation. Some of those messages were described by police as flirtatious and intimate, and the existence of a creepy LinkedIn message that Missy had shown a friend before her death was noted in affidavits. Police said they were seeking to trace and analyze those communications as part of their probe of motive and contact history. Missy's death resonated regionally. Neighbors, friends, and members of the Camp Gladiator community organized memorial runs, held candlelight vigils, and gathered to honor her memory. Local organizations set up fundraisers and events to support her family and to keep attention on the case. Police reported that thousands of tips arrived over weeks and months, reflecting both the volume of public interest and the difficulty of making a case based solely on a limited set of images. There are practical, technical, and human reasons why a case like this can take years to advance. In Missy's case, investigators faced several standard but meaningful obstacles. Clothing and disguise. The suspect's apparent use of heavy tactical clothing and a mask obscured facial features and body characteristics that often make visual identification possible. Limited identifying detail. The footage's grain and camera angles made it difficult to confirm gender, facial features, or other obvious identifiers. Lack of physical context. Nothing appeared to have been stolen, which complicates motive analysis. The presence of a hammer and multiple puncture wounds suggested a violent attack, but did not point cleanly to an obvious suspect group like opportunistic thieves. Time of day. The attack occurred in the pre-dawn hours across weather that limited some outdoor surveillance, and the suspect appears to have been careful and prepared, which hindered breakouts of forensic leads. Volume of tips versus verifying leads. Police received thousands of tips, but vetting and verifying each is resource-intensive, and many tips turn out to be unrelated. These are not excuses. They are operational realities that help explain why law enforcement has at times appealed to the public for the one small piece that could move the case forward. Over the years, the internet and national media have floated multiple theories. Suspect identities proposed, motives debated, and various amateur analysts homing in on video frames or behavioral cues. That public conversation is inevitable and sometimes useful. It can generate new tips and fresh insights. At the same time, law enforcement repeatedly cautioned against leaping to conclusions from partial images or from social media speculation. Investigators have emphasized that a single image or a single viewer's interpretation does not replace structured evidence, witness statements, forensic tests, phone records, and corroborated timelines. This episode focuses on the verified record, what investigators have said publicly, what search warrants and affidavits filed in the case describe, and what reputable local and national reporting has documented. Before we go on, subscribe to this channel. We document and we remember with care. April 18, 2016. The discovery of Missy's body at Creekside Church. Initial release of certain surveillance images and the first police statements. May 2016. Search warrants released showing the content and extent of the evidence seized. The affidavit mentions communications and items of interest investigators wanted to trace. Late 2016. Reward fund increases and local media coverage continues. Police report following numerous leads and encourage public tips. 2017 to 2021, periodic updates, continued tip vetting, and independent reporting revisiting the case. Specialized investigators and retired law enforcement personnel assisted in reviewing digital leads. 2019 to 2024. Annual memorials and local remembrances continue. Police reiterate that the case is open and active and that new tips still arrive. One delicate element in the evidence is the set of electronic communications that investigators referenced in search warrants. Authorities described in affidavits that Missy had received a message on LinkedIn days before she was killed. The message was characterized by those who saw it as creepy or strange. Investigators also stated that messages recovered from Missy's devices and others' devices included flirtatious or intimate tones, prompting investigators to examine whether a relationship or contact outside the marriage could be relevant. It's important to be careful with these details. The existence of messages does not equate to motive, and investigators have not publicly announced a definitive causative link between such communications and the attack. Still, electronic correspondence was part of the investigators' portfolio of leads, and therefore remains part of the factual record surrounding the probe. Investigators and local reporters noted a vehicle seen in a nearby parking lot before the attack. That sighting, and other vehicle reports from that morning, were followed up by detectives who canvassed local traffic cameras, interviewed residents, and checked commercial surveillance systems. Law enforcement has consistently asked residents with dashcam or parking lot footage from that date to come forward, reinforcing how even a small, otherwise mundane clip can be critical. Police reports and warrant documents release selective forensic details in support of investigative steps. In Missy's case, authorities reported multiple puncture wounds as the lethal mechanism. Beyond that core fact, police have been cautious in releasing sensitive or graphic medical details publicly. That restraint is consistent with many ongoing homicide investigations. Some information is withheld to protect the integrity of the inquiry and to preserve evidence for court if charges are ever brought. This program does not speculate about the nitty-gritty of wounds or forensic minutiae. Instead, we note that forensic analysis has been carried out, has informed investigative direction, and has been summarized by officials in broad terms to the public. Loss has a way of reframing every small detail in a life. For Missy's husband and daughters, for friends, and for those who trained with her, the years since 2016 have been a slow ache. Community members held memorial runs and vigils not only as remembrances, but as acts of collective insistence that this woman's life matters and that someone out there may hold the missing piece. Police have said they continue to receive tips. The Midlothian Department and regional partners emphasize that even small, once seemingly trivial facts, a license plate fragment, a partial image, an unusual gait observed by a neighbor, could provide the clue that brings the case to closure. Homicide investigators sometimes run up against problems that have nothing to do with will or competence. Technical limits of surveillance, the deliberate masking of a perpetrator, environmental factors, absence of witnesses, or a lack of forensic material can make it hard to build a prosecutable case. time itself erodes memory and physical traces. In Missy's case, the apparent premeditation, a disguised figure inside a church before Missy arrived, suggests a level of planning that can make tracing the perpetrator more difficult. On the other hand, planning can also leave procedural traces. Travel routes, unique gait patterns, purchase records for equipment, or digital footfalls. That is why investigators comb through databases, re-examine footage with new techniques, and seek the specific tip that will tie a suspect to the scene. Over the years, periodic updates have reiterated the same theme. The case is open, investigators are active, and tips continue to come in. Authorities have at times enlisted retired federal investigators with specialized internet and digital expertise to assist in tracing online communications tied to the case. Rewards have increased to encourage witnesses to come forward. Community members and donors supplemented official offers to raise the monetary incentive for crucial information. Midlothian Police have also asked for anyone with dash cam, ring camera, or business surveillance footage from the area and date to contact investigators. The public appetite for answers is understandable, but there is a cost to filling gaps with speculation or to sharing unvetted images that could lead to mistaken identity. Law enforcement officials warn that public speculation can muddy investigations, create false leads, and place undue pressure on families or innocent people. Documentary filmmakers, podcasters, and citizen investigators can play constructive roles, clarifying timelines, sharing overlooked footage, and bringing new evidence to light. But responsible reporting requires distinguishing verified records from rumor and verified evidence from intelligent but unproven hypothesis. If you watched Missy's story and think you might know something, even something small, please contact the authorities. Midlothian Police have consistently urged the public to submit tips through their official channels. Information that seems trivial to one person can be the one thread that investigators need. Do not post alleged tips or unverified accusations publicly on social media. That can harm investigations and innocent people. Official contact guidance. Midlothian Police Department and Ellis County Crime Stoppers have been the primary public points of contact in media reports. Please consult the department's official site or verified press releases for the most current lines and procedures. Missy Bevers' death was a shocking, violent, and senseless loss. For those who loved her, nothing will ever replace the life that was taken. For law enforcement, the case is a long, ongoing effort that requires patience, resources, and the continued cooperation of the public. As long as someone out there holds a piece of information and chooses not to share it, the case remains a possibility for resolution. Until then, this story is both a chronicle of what we know and a call to action, to prioritize verified facts, to respect grieving families, and to support investigative processes that keep communities safe.